I have a Wahoo Kickr bike, and in my most watched videos on here, I'm either talking about it, riding it, or falling off of it, and as a result I get loads of people asking me all sorts of questions about it that I'm more than happy to answer. It is one of my favourite bits of kit. But I also get loads of people asking me about how it compares to alternatives, other indoor exercise bikes, and most commonly how it compares to a regular Wahoo Kickr Trainer with a real bike sat on it. I have absolutely no idea. I could tell you more about indoor cycling with your dog than alternatives to this. I have gone on picnics with my e-bike and done about 6 outdoor rides on my triathlon P3X that I got last year before the race I got it for was cancelled, but really, the only bike I know much about is that one. I'm a bit like a doctor who only knows about one tiny part of the body, so I can help you with that, but don't ask me to do brain surgery. Basically, I'm a dentist in a slightly too tight t-shirt. But all that is about to change, because behind me is all the bits and pieces that I need to put together a Wahoo Kickr Trainer that I will then be able to mount my triathlon bike onto, and then the first thing I'm going to do is ride it up Alp du Zwift in order to get a nice quick comparison to that versus what I'm very used to, the Kickr Bike. That means this is going to be something of a first impressions video only. In due course I'll do plenty more stuff covering the new setup and how it compares to the old one. But don't expect much professional and expert analysis of anything today, although I'm unsure who is still here for professionalism and expertise after seeing me riding a bike with a dog on my back. Now, you may be thinking, your garage is already full of stuff and a little crowded. Why are you adding more equipment to it? That is an excellent question. Floor mat. A few weeks ago I did a video on how my bike fitness had improved in the year and a bit since I'd got the Kickr Bike and how I'd become an above average cyclist. And a few people said, no you're not, you're indoors. Doesn't mean you can ride a proper bike or that you'd be any good on one if you could. Which made me think two things. One, stop commenting on my videos, you f***ing miserable and two, they may have a point. I don't know how to brake or go around corners and I fall off when I'm stationary. Now that wouldn't matter if I was only ever going to ride indoors. But the race that I bought the P3X for last year, that's the Hamburg Ironman in Germany, and it's back on for June 2022, and I'm 80% sure I need to go around corners. So last week I got the P3X down to go for a ride outside, but then it started raining so I just put it back again. Corners can wait. I think it's a desk. Instructions for a desk. But I do need to get used to being sat on the bike in an aero position for a very long time, which might not be very comfortable if I haven't practiced it. So it occurred to me that the long rides that I plan to start doing on Zwift at the weekend, just 1-2 hour plus long group rides, I could be doing those on the P3X on a regular trainer. So basically I'd ride the Kickr Bike during the week on Zwift in races for fun, where it's just fast and furious for a short distance.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
And then use the P3X on a trainer at the weekend for longer rides to get used to the position. And then when the weather gets better in the spring, I will burst out of the garage onto the real roads, fit and aerodynamic, and with a good couple of months to figure out braking and turning before Germany. Wurstbundork technique. I like that. So I asked Wahoo for some advice on what I would need to get set up for that. And because they are incredibly supportive of what I do, and also massively just good all-round people, they said, we can help you out. So a huge thank you to Wahoo for hooking me up with all these bits and pieces. And as always, there's no obligation on me to do anything in return. So rest assured, if this stuff is all junk, I will tell you. Or they did want me to get the dog to appear wearing a Wahoo hat at some stage, but that seems to be a very fair deal. It was a desk. Okay, let's put all this stuff together. I appreciate there's probably cooler stuff to unbox yet, but the desk is actually impressing me quite a bit. I had avoided getting the desk because I didn't think it would work with my Kickr Bike, especially because my Kickr Bike is up on top of a rocker platform, and so I thought it'd be too high. But this is really adjustable. Okay, we like that already. Doesn't get in the way of the bike, even when the bike's rocking about. Move it backwards and forwards. 10 out of 10 so far. Man, I need to tidy up. It's tiny.
Really? Nothing.
One of the reasons I went for the Kickr Bike and not the Kickr Trainer in the first place, apart from not having a bike to put on the trainer, was that I thought the setup would just be too big and cumbersome. But actually this is really compact. You can clearly fold this down and stick it out the way far more easily than you can the Kickr Bike. You've obviously then got to deal with your actual bike being stored somewhere, but that's probably easier than storing the Kickr Bike actually. This is really pretty cool. So the legs are out. I think I have to set this height because it says here mountain bike, and obviously I'm not putting a mountain bike on it. So far there was not a lot to that. The little legs on here just pop out, lock into place. You have to adjust the height on here to set how high up your wheel would be, but that's incredibly straightforward. And that is it. I almost think I might be ready to put my bike on it. Okay, there's not much in the bag. There is a power lead, which is pretty straightforward. That is a power lead for foreign country, my power lead. So the idea with the feet, these are large, these are tiny, and the medium ones are on there already, is that by using different sized feet, it adjusts or increases or decreases the amount of rock that the unit has. So you have these little rubber squishy units on the bottom, the adjustable feet go in the middle, and I guess the smaller the unit here, the more squidge it allows here. Makes more sense. Okay, but that's pretty much done. That was remarkably straightforward and simple. The unit is really compact. Actually, in my mind, I'd envisaged it being just a lot more, maybe because the Wahoo Kickr Bike is such a big lump. Okay, it's plugged in, it's turned on. I'm going to load up my Wahoo app. Add new sensor. It's found it. Name. I think that's it. Let's go for a pedal. Right, super impressed so far. Riding it feels as fluid on the gear change as it does when it's outside. Feels super stable. The bike went on the unit incredibly simply. Thinking about how I'm going to use it, to set it up on a Friday night in here, to wheel this one out the way, to get the trainer onto the bike and ready to go for a long ride on a Saturday morning, is probably going to take me less time than it would take me to get the bike set up for a road ride the following day. So checking my toolkit is all ready, which obviously I don't need to worry about in here. Checking my tyre pressure is all good, which I don't need to worry about in here. So very, very happy with that for now. And the desk fits perfectly, so that's pretty cool too. There's also a couple of other boxes back there. I've got a headwind fan unit. I've already got one, so now I've got two. I'm not going to set up in here, but there is a plan, slightly medium longer term, that all my bike stuff is going to go to a different room in the house. So then 2 fan units blowing at me is going to be incredibly cool indeed, literally cool. See what I did there? There's also a climb unit. Climb unit is the thing that goes on the front forks that pitches the bike up and down dependent upon gradient. So if you're on Zwift and you come to a mountain, you go up the way the Kickr Bike pitches up and down. I'm not going to rig that up just yet either, because I want to just get used to the cool new experience of riding like this, and then I'll add the climb in at a later date, a later video, and I don't want to have too much joy and excitement all at once. That would seem to be wasting it. It's like Christmas, where you make your kids open their presents during the day rather than all at once. Or is that just me? So step 1 complete. It is coming up for midday on Saturday. Going to put this on hold. Shortly, Jen and I are taking my parents into London tonight for one of our regular nights out on the city to celebrate their gazillionth wedding anniversary. It's not something they're used to doing. We aren't treating them to an exact copy of how we spend our time there normally, but it will be close enough. And my dad is 84. I neither want him having a heart attack nor taking out an extra release loan on their bungalow so they can make trips to Stringfellows a regular event in their diary. So we will pick this up tomorrow at the bottom of the Alp, where I will be ready to go and possibly still drunk. Okay, I am back. I'm exhausted. I don't know how much sleep I had last night, but I do know it was grossly insufficient. I should probably just go straight to bed, but I have far too many calories I now need to burn, so I'm going to have to ride up this stupid hill anyway. Not sure how many calories. I gave up counting when eating dumplings in a bar in Chinatown around 1 AM. It was a very, very long night. So, since I've got home, I've done an update for the Kickr on the Wahoo app. Took 30 seconds, easy. Hooked the bike up to Zwift on the MacBook, another 30 seconds. My MacBook has got AMP Plus and Bluetooth. Don't even know which one it used to hook up, but it did. Very, very quick and straightforward. I've adjusted the rear legs on the unit so it's nice and stable. Skimmed through the manual just to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing in there. There wasn't. All seems very simple, really. It did say I should be using the big feet as a heavier person, but it feels rock solid, so I'm not going to bother with that. So the feet are going with the quick release axle that I don't need because my bike is using its own threaded axle, all very straightforward, so they go in the spares drawer. That's it really. I guess if you have a 12 gear rear cassette or something, there might be more to set up, but the 11 speed cassette it came with fitted just perfect to my bike. No more complicated really than taking the wheel in and out. Very, very straightforward. Right. Let's get up the mountain. I was going to do the commentary while I rode the bike, but I was half asleep, so I figured it was better to just pedal and then do this bit today, Monday, awake. As an indication of how tired I was yesterday, I set off up the mountain on my in-game aero race bike, so I had to turn around right to the bottom and pick my lightweight climbing bike instead. And then I set off with the trainer difficulty at maximum, which was never going to work with that bike, which is rigged for going very fast on the flat. I couldn't get the RPM over about 70 in the easiest gear, so turned around again and sorted that out. Third time lucky. Now the reason I'm riding the Alp is that I've done it 3 or 4 times now and I know what I should be able to do. I've got a 59.09 PB from last Christmas, a slightly slower 59.15 from the day after I caved in my face when I blacked out on a marathon run, and a 63.50 when I rode with Nixon a couple of weeks ago. So I have enough experience to know whether this is faster or slower or no different, or more importantly, whether it feels any different to the Kickr bike. And experience of how this bike actually feels normally is something that I'm lacking. As I said, I've ridden it about 6 times only, all last year. I tried it once in here on rollers. That was a very short experiment that ended badly. And that lack of experience on it, especially in the tucked aero position, is what I'm expecting to hurt on this ride, and what I do need to practice, because for Ironman and a couple of duathlons that I've got before then, I need to be comfortable sat like this on the bike for a long time. Now, if you've seen my Alp climbs before, you'll know what I do. I take the corner time and total time from my PB last Christmas, and I use that as a guide to see how I'm doing. So I'll flash those up on the screen as I go here. Let's take corner 21 as an example. PB was there in 4 minutes 11, a total time of 4:11 because it's the first corner, and this time I was there in 4:10, bang on track. Right, while that is playing away, let me talk about the Kickr Trainer in general. I like it. It is so compact. If you've got a space issue, it's going to be absolutely perfect. It will sit inside a cupboard, just whip it out when you need to train on it. And it takes me about 30 seconds to fit the bike onto it. I used to think that when people made the argument for the Kickr Trainer over the Kickr Bike, saying that it was smaller, was daft because they both need space when set up. But clearly, that thing packs down to a fraction of the size of the Kickr Bike, assuming you can then store the bike you use on it somewhere. Clearly, if you start sticking that on a rocker plate, then the benefit of size is going to reduce. I'm not going to, because I use a rocker plate to reduce the pretty extreme forces on the Kickr Bike when I'm sprinting hard. The whole thing is moving a lot underneath me when I do that. But on this setup, I'm trained to sit nice and steady and hold the right pace for a long time. So there should be little bouncing about on it. And there's enough give in the little rubber feet that it's got to deal with what movement there is. Okay, what else? The headwind fan I've been using for a while. It's still awesome. Tracks my heart rate off the heart rate monitor that I wear, and then blows me the perfect amount We love that. The desk is good too. It's not a cheap item, but it's a get what you pay for thing. You could sit on it. It's on wheels. It height adjusts. You can stick the iPad in little slots it's got around the edge. My cheap little laptop stand that I used to use has gone in the bin as a result of how good that thing is. I say it's gone in the bin, it hasn't gone in the bin, it's gone in the metal recycling section at a local tip because Jenna was worried if it wasn't recycled properly and was just tossed out in the garbage, it would end up, I don't know, floating around the ocean or something, annoying dolphins, I guess. So just looking at how this ride is going, I'd been roughly on track with my previous times every corner. Missed a few, ahead on a few. This one, corner 10, it's the halfway point. You've got to be here under 30 minutes. That then means you're on track for sub 1 hour. And I hit it 15 seconds off my best, which is good. I was really surprised actually because I felt terrible, not just exhausted in general because I should have been in bed, but I'm also just not used to being on that bike. The position, being in a triathlon tuck, it's much more pitched forwards to try and deal with a tight angle on the hip, created if you just bent down with your butt still a long way back like on a regular bike. Your knees would be banging you in the chest. Anyway, that position was just hammering my quads. They were on fire. It felt like I was doing leg extensions in the gym non-stop. So hitting that halfway point, on track for sub-hour, that was not expected. Aside from the leg pain, I was enjoying the sensation of being on a regular bike. It felt much more real. It's like when I used to play Sega Rally in 1994. When I got my first house in 95, I got the steering wheel that my parents had never let me buy when I was living at home. Still sat on the sofa, still playing the same game, but it felt more real than using the controller. Sega Rally, ask your parents. Now here is the only issue that I did encounter, and it may have been slightly my fault. Less than 20 minutes to go, feeling okay, holding north of 300 watts, listening to the news on LBS radio, staying abreast of current affairs, Bluetooth drops out. I unplug the bike, I plug it back in, nothing. So I unpair the MacBook and then repair it, and I'm now back online, but I'm way behind. Very, very annoying. I've chatted with Wahoo today and they have confirmed what I already knew really, which is that Ant Plus is the better way to connect because it's less affected by conflicting signals flying around like Bluetooth can be. And I knew that from using the Kickr Bike, which is why my MacBook has an Ant Plus adapter on it. I just didn't bother to make sure that that's how it would connect it up. Very, very stupid of me. They also pointed out that typically, in their defense, Bluetooth signals get messed up on the receiving device rather than on the transmitting device. But to be honest, that doesn't really help me one way or the other because I need both ends to be just working. Basically, in here, with a ton of conflicting signals flying around, I should be using my Ant Plus dongle. And since I started using that on the Kickr Bike ages ago, I've never had a dropout since. Wahoo have also said that they are almost at the point where the new direct connection lead that will be working with Zwift soon. So that'll be quite cool. It just means that I can plug into the back of the trainer and then plug directly into the MacBook with a wire. If you're just riding around for fun, it's no big deal. But if you are racing and taking it seriously, then making dropouts guaranteed not to happen, that's probably got to be the way to go. And if it needs a wire to achieve that, then that's fine by me. Although 99.9% of the time, if you use Ant Plus, you won't have an issue. So let's wrap up this climb. The final push to the line, the ETA pops up and shows me at sub 1 hour. I'm never going to hit my PB. So instead I set myself a target of staying in that aero position all the way to the line. You can't listen to the audio on here because by now I've turned off the news and I'm obviously listening to Rocky 4. I scrape under 59.45. And given I felt rough and had the drop out on corner 6, that will do for me. And so in comparison, it does show that the Kickr Bike and the Kickr Trainer with me on them are comparable. Had I not had the dropout, I would have been on track to hit a PB. Now you might think that that would have been odd to hit a PB given the late night I just had and so on. But actually, since I set that original PB, I've dropped some weight and I've also got fitter. So I am due to go significantly under 59 minutes at some point. The reason I didn't on my previous 2 rides were minor concussion on the one after the marathon blackout and a minor dog on my back on the last ride. I think a fresh attack on the Alp, feeling good, could see me go under 58 minutes, maybe. And I would be just as confident doing that on either bike at the moment. So what next? I need to hook the climb unit up to the front of this. That is going to be fun, get it pitching up and down. I'm going to have a couple of races as well, probably longer races where there's less standing and thrashing about on the bike. That sort of nonsense is probably best kept for the Kickr Bike. And longer term, my original plan seems solid. Use the Kickr Bike during the week and then get some long sessions, some foundation training if you like, in on the P3X, sat in that aero position at the weekends. For those who will say that still does not make me an outdoor cyclist, I agree, there is not really much in the way of steering and braking, I suppose. But to be honest, is it that hard? Just look where you're going. You're outside and swerve around, things are in the way. There's probably now a few thousand cyclists all typing in the comments that it's very skillful and technical to swerve around things. So in summary, and remembering that this is still very much just a first impression, is the Kickr Bike or the Kickr Trainer better? Is an impossible and slightly stupid question to even ask in the first place, because they are both so different to each other. Some people are simply not going to have any space for a Kickr Bike. It is a big lump. Some people will not already own a bike to put on a trainer and will have no intention of getting one. They just want to have an exercise they can do indoors. They don't want to become a cyclist. But for those people that have the space for either and do ride outside, it's a trickier decision. Clearly the trainer is cheaper if you already have a bike. Even adding the climb unit onto the front of it is still under half the price of a Kickr Bike. And if you take your outdoor cycling very seriously, there is a good argument that training on the bike you use outside makes sense. Arguably, I could alter the geometry on the Kickr Bike to better match the P3X, but I think I'm always going to notice a difference between them, and if that comes in the form of stiffness or discomfort and pain in the middle of a race, that would be very inconvenient. But I do like my Kickr Bike. As a means of controlling the Zwift avatar, it is hard to beat. You don't need to worry about when you shift gear, you just shift gear when you need to. You can be as brutal on it as you want, you can thrash about during your sprints, and it will just be probably okay. And it's obviously always ready to go sat here, which makes doing a training session in the evening when I'm a bit pushed for time just more likely to happen. Now you could argue that a bike left on the trainer will also always be ready to go, but then you're into the realms of spending out on a bike that you'll never actually use outside, and so the cost starts to move closer between the two. Not to mention the Kickr Bike can be altered to suit any size of rider in seconds, so everybody in the family can use it. Bottom line, tough choice, but I doubt anybody would be disappointed with either. They are both pretty cool bits of kit. Obviously more in-depth stuff to come in future videos. Okay, I hope you find it useful and interesting and slightly entertaining. If you did, like and subscribe please, because that just keeps the videos coming. If you've got any questions about the setup or things you want me to try with either unit, just stick that down in the comments below. For now, I am out of here. No, I'm not out of here. Nearly forgot. 1 minute.